Welcome to the Gaming Bench. Something a little different today. Instead of my usual ancient game fare, I'm going to build a modern game, Quarto. Quarto's a pretty simple 4-in-a-row game that has a depth of strategy that makes it a really interesting game, and it's just beautiful to look at. All right, first, let's get building. I'm going to make the board first. It's really pretty simple. It's just a 4x4 grid of circles. I printed out a design that I whipped up on the computer, and I'm going to transfer it to this maple that I'm going to use for the board. So I glued together a couple pieces of maple I had to make some panels. This is about 1/4 of an inch, and this is about 1/2 an inch. So I'm going to lay this out on the thinner piece, drill holes the whole way through it, and then just glue it down to that. So I line this up with a little bit of extra to trim off, and now I'm just going to punch the center of each of these so I know where to drill. I want all you viewers to know that I listened to your advice and got a Forster bit. Actually, it turns out I already had this. I'd kind of forgotten about it. It came with a kit that I bought to make a little shop radio. But yeah, I have one size, and it happens to be the right size for this project. All right. I know I'd probably get better results with a drill press in this bit, but the crappy little benchtop drill press I have, the throat isn't deep enough to reach all these holes. So hand drill it is. Huh. Is my bit just that dull? I mean, this is hard maple, but still, jeez. Wow. Burning the crap out of that wood. Okay, change of plans. I'm pretty confident the problem is that this bit I have is just dull. The maple's really hard, so I think it's just a bad combination. This is 1 7/8 of an inch, and turns out it's not a super common size. I went to a couple hardware stores this morning trying to find a replacement for it or a set that included multiple sizes, including 1 7/8, and I wasn't able to find one. So I went on order, should arrive here in 2 days. So until that gets here, I'm gonna work on the pieces. And I try to never do this, right? I wanna build all the pieces first and then the board, or finish the board and then build the pieces to make sure that the two go together. When you work on them simultaneously, sometimes you have pieces that don't fit in the board. But I've done a bunch of sample pieces as I was going along, and I feel pretty confident that I have the size I need. So for these pieces, I wanted to make them out of, they got to be light and dark, so I wanted to make them out of some sort of interesting wood. I happen to have a really thick chunk of canarywood sitting around, left over from a Mancala board I built for my youngest last year. And I also have some wenge that I think the two together will look really striking. And this should be all I need to build these pieces. Because for the game, there are, 16 pieces total, 8 of dark and 8 of light. So I should be able to get all these pieces out of this. Like I said, I've done some test pieces. This is, I think, 4 inches. This is 3.5 inches. The tall piece and the short piece is a little more than 2. All the sets I've seen have looked just like this. They're a square piece and a round piece. So the two big considerations were I how to make it look different. I wanted it to look unique, handmade, like I made it. And also, I was really nervous about these round pieces because that would mean I have to turn half of this stalk, and that's not my greatest woodworking skill, and turning an entire piece so that it was consistent diameter the whole way down, yeah, I wasn't sure if I could do that. And I just don't know, the grain is so pronounced in this wenge, I don't know how it's gonna turn. So instead, what I decided to do is, instead of making it truly round, I'm gonna square it off on the table saw so that it's, 2, 4, 6, an octagon instead of truly round. And I think those will look good together. I'm pretty happy with these test pieces I've made. So to start, all I need to do is to run these through the table saw. I'm going to, I don't need to do anything with the square stock, so I'll cut these in half, and then I'll shave off the edges of half of each of these, and I can use those for the round pieces. I've been fussing with this next part for an embarrassingly long time. What I need to do next is drill a hole in the top of half of these pieces. And I did some test pieces, and I like to eyeball things, but if you don't have the hole really centered, you're gonna see it. You're gonna be able to tell, even if it's off just a little bit. Now, this has no impact on the game, but I'm gonna see it and it's gonna bug me forever. So here's what I did. I created this jig. It's just a right angle with another piece that I can clamp in. So I can take this piece and just mount it in there and secure it so it doesn't move. I spent a lot of time adjusting and fooling around with this, and I think I have this dialed in so that it's gonna drill right in the center. Now, all of these are the same size. Like the square and the octagonal ones are basically the same diameter, so I don't have to change the setup. I can just drill all of them. And that hopefully will give me the precision I want, as long as this beam that I have clamped down to my bench doesn't shift. So here's hoping. Now, I am drilling both sides of these hollow pieces. You don't have to, but I'm trying to avoid like this hollow piece accidentally being set upside down and it being confused for a solid piece. Okay, that's all the pieces done. I mean, not done. I still have to sand all of these. I got pencil marks on here and all the edges are sharp, but I'll sand these up to 220 and then figure out how I want to finish these. So I thought I was done with these pieces, but I was looking at them and I decided to add one more detail. In the hollow ones, I don't like the way it looks because these Forstner bits have been fantastic, But it super annoys me that all the literature that you read about them says it leaves a flat-bottomed hole, but it doesn't. The little brad point on the end of the Forster bit leaves a little depression, a little hole in the center. It's not flat. I don't care what you say in your packaging, it's a lie. So I thought it would look good if I filled that hole with a plug from the opposite species of wood that I'm using for the pieces. And I was on the fence. I thought about filling up the hole entirely so it was flush on the top, but after playing with it a little bit, I decided I like it better if it's still a little recessed. I can still say that it's a hollow piece. So I cut some thin strips of the wenge and the canary wood, roughly cut them into circles, ground them down to the proper size on my disc sander, and just glued them in. And now I really like the way they look. And now I'm officially done with these pieces. Well, after I take them outside and hit them with a couple coats of shellac. Drill bit came in, so cut all holes in this piece. I will glue it to this, and that will be the board. All right, glued the two pieces of wood together. I chamfered all the edges of the spaces before I did that. Trimmed it up on the table saw, and I think it's looking pretty good. I'm tempted to leave it just the way it is, except for one thing. The edges look pretty decent, except for right here. You can see the gap where the wood just didn't come together, and I don't like that. I thought about putting a rail on the side, but I don't know, the board's a good size just the way it is. I don't really want to make it any bigger. So here's what I think I'm going to do. Instead of covering this with a veneer or something, I'm going to cut a groove right where that glue line is, just a thin line, and then put some inlay. Put a dark colored wood in there just as a highlight, and then it'll look like I did it on purpose. All right, that looks pretty legit. And I cut some strips of walnut. Now I just need to glue it in. After the glue was good and dry, I took it over to the table saw to clean up the edge. Looks pretty good. I burned the wood pretty bad. A couple spots here. So I'll need to sand that off. I hit the board with a couple coats of spray-on polyurethane, and we're done. Really happy with how this turned out. I kept the board really simple on purpose because I wanted all the attention to be on the pieces, and I think the combination of the wenge and the canary wood is just really striking. And it's not only a really handsome looking game, just as a art object just sitting out, I think it's really cool looking. All right, now that we've built a cool game, let's learn more about Quarto. Quarto was invented by Swiss game designer Blaise Müller. He's an interesting guy. He studied mathematics and physics, but later turned to working with his hands, working as a portrait framer for a time. Ultimately, he then shifted to game design, where he combined his mathematic and artistic sides into designing some really compelling games. Müller originally conceived of the game in the early 80s when he called it 4x4. He won a game design competition in 1985, but after that, the game just sat unpublished for years. In 1991, the French board game company Gigamic published the commercial version, complete with its new name, Quarto. The first print run of 5,000 games sold out in 6 months. It went on to win a bunch of awards and is still regularly listed among the top abstract strategy games. So, how do you play? The rules for Quarto are really pretty simple. First, all the pieces have some combination of 4 characteristics. The pieces can be dark or light, tall or short, square or round, or solid or hollow. To win, all you need to do is get 4 of any single characteristic in a row, either horizontally, vertically, or diagonally. Just remember that there's only 2 diagonals because it still has to be 4. So for instance, if you were to do this, that's a winning move because they're all dark. If you did something like this, that's a winning move because they're all short. Or this would be a winning move because they're all round. So the interesting twist to the game is on your turn, you don't draw a piece for yourself, you draw a piece and hand it to your opponent, and then they have to play it. So for each move, you're trying to figure out what piece to give to your opponent for them to make a move that ultimately benefits you. Really ingenious twist, and it turns what would otherwise be a pretty straightforward 4 in a row game to something much more interesting. And that's it. I'm really happy with the way this turned out. I have not only a game that's fun to play, but a really interesting art object. This video is a little different than my typical content. Usually I spend one video building an ancient game and then another video talking about the rules and history of that ancient game. But there's no real history to this game because it's a modern game. But if this is the kind of stuff that you think you would enjoy, I hope you like and subscribe, tell your friends, do all the things. Oh, hey, and also I have merch now, so you can see that in a link down below the description. All right. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time on The Gaming Bench.